God reveals, my beloved child, seize this miraculous day for transforming blessings. Do not delay. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, King Xerxes ruled over the vast Persian Empire, presiding from the citadel of Susa, a majestic palace shimmering with gold and opulence. Among the court, there stood a young woman named Esther, an orphan raised by her cousin Mordecai. Her beauty was unparalleled, yet within her heart resided a formidable resilience shaped by the teachings of her heritage and the fear of the Lord, Yahweh. Esther gazed over the palace grounds, her heart burdened with the weight of a hidden truth. A sinister decree had been issued by Haman, the king's trusted advisor, aiming to annihilate the Jews. Despair gripped her soul as Mordecai's words echoed in her mind, perhaps you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. These words resonated deep within her spirit, sparking a flame of divine purpose amidst her fear. The opulent palace, adorned with lavish feasts and silken draperies, felt like a gilded cage to Esther. The laughter and loyalty of her subjects rang hollow against the backdrop of her people's suffering. Days turned to weeks, and Esther found herself wrestling with the shadows of indecision, the gravity of Haman's plot pulling at her conscience. To approach the king unbidden was to risk her life, yet remaining silent could mean the slaughter of her own kin. In desperation, Esther turned to the Lord in fervent prayer. Deep within her spirit, she felt the stirring of divine courage. I shall fast, she resolved, enjoining her maidservants and all the Jews in Susa to join her in this act of earnest faith. Torn between her royal duties and the impending doom haunting her people, Esther steeled herself for the task ahead, understanding that perhaps she was meant to be the vessel of deliverance. As the appointed day dawned, Esther adorned herself in her royal robes, her heart pounding with trepidation. The weight of her decision pressed heavily upon her, each pulse echoing her resolve to act. When she stepped into the throne room, the air was thick with expectation and apprehension. The king's commanding figure sat upon his golden throne, his eyes piercing yet blind to the turmoil within her. Esther stepped forward, breathless and trembling, meeting the gaze of King Xerxes as he lifted his golden scepter, a gesture of favor extending toward her. Her voice quivered, yet she spoke without hesitation, interceding for her people. The moment hung in the balance, a divine appointment revealing a path that could alter the course of history. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select all notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. As the weight of her request filled the air, Esther sensed a shift, a light illuminating the darkness. Her heart cried out to God, knowing that her identity and the fate of her people rested upon this pivotal moment. Would she dare reveal her Jewish lineage and the wicked scheme of Haman? Her courage teetered at the edge of destiny, where obedience to God beckoned, and a miracle loomed ahead. The future now hung by a thread, suspended in divine mystery. What lay beyond this moment of revelation? Would her courage and faith catalyze salvation for her people? Time would tell, and she must not delay. As Esther steadied herself, silence enveloped the throne room. The eyes of King Xerxes bore into her, and in that fleeting moment, she felt the weight of both heaven and earth pressing upon her soul. The heart of a nation was poised precariously upon her shoulders, and she could sense the urgency of the divine. "O King," she began, her voice a fragile whisper, yet imbued with an authority that betrayed her trembling spirit. "If I have found favor in your sight, and it pleases the king, let my life be granted me, and my people, for we have been sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, killed, and annihilated." Her words tumbled forth like a torrent, born from the depths of a heart yearning for deliverance. The king, taken aback, furrowed his brow, his pulse quickening. Who is he, and where is he, who dares to presume in his heart to do such a thing? His voice thundered through the chamber, striking fear into all who were present. Esther sensed a shift, divine favor washing over her, unveiling her path. With a deep inhale, she met the king's gaze, gathering her courage. An adversary and enemy, this wicked Haman. The name escaped her lips like a dagger, piercing the complacency of the court. Haman, upon hearing his name from Esther's mouth, glanced about in confusion and disbelief, as the color drained from his face. King Xerxes rose from his throne, the golden scepter now tremulous in his grip. What treachery is this? He stormed, rage igniting like a firestorm in his chest. The royal chamber reverberated with tension, each servant holding their breath under the looming threat of judgment. In that moment, time slowed, and the very air crackled with divine intervention. Esther, sensing the heavens were aligned, pressed on, recounting how Haman had plotted against her people, weaving the threads of despair into a tapestry of hope. If it please the king, she implored, let justice be served, for I stand not as a mere orphan but as a chosen vessel of the Almighty. As she spoke, the king's fury kindled, and Xerxes motioned to his guards. Bring Haman. Let him be punished according to his wickedness. With swift obedience, the guards seized Haman, dragging him forth as the court gasped in collective horror. Yet, amidst the unfolding chaos, Esther felt the presence of God surrounding her, the weight of his promise resting firmly in her heart. She had put her life on the line not just for her own sake, but for the covenant people of God. In her mind, she echoed the words of her uncle Mordecai, and her spirit soared with hope. As Haman's plot unraveled, Esther glanced at the royal scrolls, knowing the decree was already sealed with the authority of the king. There lay the depth of their plight, for even as wickedness sought to claim their lives, God's sovereignty hovered over the unfolding narrative. But little did Esther know, the battle was just beginning. For the heart of a king, once turned toward his faithful servant, would also encounter the shadow of despair. How would the decree be undone? What role would Esther continue to play in God's unfolding story of redemption? And so the destiny of a people awaited the next step in faith, for Esther's moment was but the beginning, a divine prelude to the salvation that was at hand. The Lord was weaving through the fabric of time, and the ultimate revelation of his plan loomed just beyond the veil. What further marvels would unfold, and would Esther stand steadfast in her purpose? Only the hand of God could unveil the answers hidden in his sovereign mystery. The throne room hummed with a tension that held all present in a grip of fearful anticipation. The guards clutched Haman tightly, their eyes darting nervously between their king and the accused. Xerxes' fury burned in the depths of his being, for betrayal touched him deeply. As the weight of Esther's words settled, the king's heart wrestled, torn between the darkness of deceit and the light of his beloved queen. Esther, my queen, he spoke, the velvet of his voice contrasting against the steel of his anger. You shall not perish. Your cry has pierced my heart. He turned to Haman, whose arrogance had ensnared him in a web of his own crafting. How could you, a trusted adviser, plot such wickedness against her name? Against the very people that serve in my court. Haman's tongue stumbled, fear coiled around his speech as he attempted to shift the blame. My king, I acted not alone. The decree was to eliminate an entire people, unworthy and defiant before you. It was the council that allowed this. Esther's gaze hardened. Nay, O king. Haman speaks with the tongue of a serpent, seeking to slither free of his own treachery. My people are not the unworthy, for the Almighty has witnessed our plight. She took another step forward, emboldened by the spirit of her ancestors, for she stood on ground holy to God. We are a people of covenant, a reflection of the God who set us apart. Xerxes' heart raced, caught in the maelstrom of justice and mercy. He strode grandly like the roar of a lion, the might of an ancient king. Let him there be no more delay. Bring forth my decree and unseal the edict, let it stand no longer. What Haman has intended against you, let it abide upon his own head. As the words shattered the air of the courtroom, the murmurs cascaded like a wave through the court. Those who had once feared Haman now breathed a sigh of relief, surprised at the sudden reversal of fortune. The guards restrained Haman, guiding him towards the gallows he had built for Mordecai, the very gallows which now mocked his threat of deceit. Xerxes raised his hand, silencing the bewildered crowd. Esther, daughter of my kin, speak to me once more. How will we ensure that justice is maintained while your people are shielded from this darkness?" Esther, emboldened and filled with the Spirit, replied, "Let an edict follow swiftly. Grant us the right to defend ourselves against any who would seek our destruction. In this way, let mercy flow with justice, for we are in your hands, O King." With quills dancing across parchment, the royal scribes etched a new decree, one bound in righteousness and sanctified by the king's seal. Upon its completion, Xerxes presented it to Esther, his heart kindled with shared purpose. "Let this stand as a proclamation for all to witness: your people shall not perish." But as joy began to flower in the hearts of the Jews, the shadow of Haman's treachery yet loomed large. For as the armies and the masses prepared, a deeper plot unwove in the shadows, a plot still cloaked in darkness. With the decree signed and the gallows set, Esther stood before her people, her voice trembling yet strong. "Behold, I stand here as a servant of the Most High. Let us not take vengeance into our own hands. Instead, let us place our trust in the one who sees and knows all." Thus did the threads of fate draw taut, and as they gathered in prayer, a divine revelation emerged upon the horizon. But little did they know that this victory would come at a cost, for God's purposes were far deeper than they could fathom, and behind every promise lay more than a mere shadow. "What greater works must we prepare for?" whispered Mordecai in the stillness. "For God is not finished yet." Thus, as the people united for their coming battle, the stage was set for the miraculous display of God's sovereign plan, but its final unveiling would come at a surprising moment, hidden still in the tapestry of time. The sun rose brightly over the city of Susa, illuminating the hearts of a people filled with both dread and hope. The news of Haman's deceit and the edict of the king reverberated throughout the land, stirring restless silence among the exiles. As they began to gather in the streets, calling for unity and strength, the whispers of the Almighty's providence took root among them. In the very heart of the assembly, Mordecai stood tall. His visage spoke volumes of the faith he carried within. He lifted his voice, resonating as a trumpet calling the faithful. "Hear me, O people of Israel. The Lord of hosts has not abandoned us. In the presence of danger, let our faith endure. We shall rise with courage as our shield and trust as our sword." Esther, having received word of Mordecai's call, hastened to the assembly, adorned in royal garments that shimmered as a testament to God's grace. She spoke with boldness, "Believers, today we gather not just to defend our lives but to proclaim the glory of the one who saves. In prayer and petition, let us seek his favor. For though we face darkness, the light of the Lord has shone upon our path." As she uttered these words, the air was charged with a holy expectancy, and a stirring began anew within the souls gathered before her. "In him, we are a peculiar treasure," she continued, Spirit-filled. "Let us not succumb to fear, rather, let us stand firm as a testament of faith. And as we prepare for the coming trial, let us pray that the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob grants us favor in the eyes of our deliverers." The assembly bowed low before the heavens, their voices rising like incense. "O God of our forefathers, hear our cry. You who delivered us from the bondage of Pharaoh, who parted the sea for our salvation, we beseech you to deliver us now. Guide our hand in battle and grant us victory over our adversaries." As the sounds of supplication echoed through the streets, the atmosphere shifted. Tension hung like a thick fog, momentarily pierced by a vision that swept over Esther. Within her spirit, she sensed a profound stirring, a revelation that would guide her people. She felt both a fearsome urgency and an assurance, as though the breath of the Lord had whispered to her, "Fear not, for I am with you." Meanwhile, Haman's demise was unfolding. He was led, bound and accused, before the king's edict was proclaimed publicly. Yet, remnants of power still lingered in the shadows, his allies stirred with vengeance, plotting retaliation against the Persian throne itself. Upon terrible fastness, many in the court began to strategize, eyes shifting toward Esther and Mordecai, whose enemy lay now vanquished. Their malice stirred as they sought an opportunity to rise again, misdirecting a plot to the heart of the queen, who was seen as both a risk and a potential pawn. Then, from the depths of Mordecai's soul, a call resonated anew, he sensed the shifting of atmosphere. The hour approaches for our God to unveil his hand. Stand ready, for the Lord has a plan far beyond our understanding. And so, they prayed fervently, their hearts aligned with the divine purpose that seemed to thrum in the air. Each heart, a soldier of faith, prepared for the day that would reveal the fullness of God's decree, for within their unity lay the promise of something greater, a sweeping miracle that would alter the fate of nations. But little did they know, the fullness of God's plan reached far deeper. It beckoned the plight of nations yet unseen, a cosmic battle of profound consequence lay just ahead, orchestrated by the Master of all creation. What surprising twist might lie within the shadows, waiting for its ordained moment to bring forth glory? Their journey toward redemption was only beginning, and the layers of God's sovereign plan awaited unveiling. As the assembly trembled in anticipation, evening descended upon Susa, painting the sky with hues of deepening twilight. The flickering lamps were lit, casting a gentle glow on the faces of the faithful. In this moment of sacred assembly, hope intertwined with fear, as the people sought clarity in the midst of uncertainty. Mordecai, burdened yet resolute, turned his gaze to the heavens, seeking wisdom from on high. His heart stirred, for he recalled the words of the prophet, "The Lord will fight for you, you need only to be still," Exodus 14 verse 14. Gathering his strength, he called out to his kin, "Let us remember, Israel. Our God is a mighty warrior. His promises hold steadfast. In this trial, he will not forsake us." Esther, emboldened by the stirring of her heart, stepped forward among her people, her voice steady yet passionate. "Beloved, I sense the Lord has not only called me to stand in the gap but has prepared a way that we may not yet see. It is now that we must rise in prayer and fasting. I will approach the king, for my heart is burdened for our people, and I will bear our plea." A hush fell over the crowd, the weight of her words settling among them like a heavy mantle. The fear of the fate that awaited them mingled with the whispers of divine hope. "But Lady Queen," one among the assembly cried, "what if the king does not extend his scepter? What then shall we do?" Esther's eyes filled with compassion as she answered, "It is written, you do not realize that it was for such a time as this that I have come to royal position," Esther 4 verse 14. "I will go to the king, and though I perish, I shall not shrink from my duty. Our fate is woven into the tapestry of his eternal plan. Trust in him." The crowd began to murmur in agreement, hearts igniting with the flame of faith. With heavy hearts, the people made a covenant of prayer, binding themselves to the task set before them. "We will fast," they declared. "For 3 days and nights, we shall seek the face of God. May he grant Esther favor, and may she speak for us." As night deepened, Esther withdrew to her chambers, her heart a battlefield of emotions. She sunk to her knees, the golden glow of the royal palace contrasting with her sense of despair and urgency. "O Lord," she whispered, "give me courage. As I tread upon your covenant promises, may your hand direct my steps and grant me the words that will pierce the heart of the king." Heaven seemed silent, yet amidst the stillness, she felt the gentle embrace of God's presence, reminding her, "I am with you." Meanwhile, as darkness enveloped Susa, the shadows beyond the walls stirred anew, Haman's allies gathered, their hearts seething with vengeance and plots against the vulnerable queen. "Do you not see," one hissed, "that this is our chance to reclaim power? We shall drown her in fear and chaos, and bring our master's vision to fruition." The air was thick with malice, yet little did they know, fewer were those who stood against the might of God. On the brink of dawn, a momentum began to build among the faithful, their cries pulsating into the heavens like an unending stream. "Hear us, O Lord!" their voices called out. "Grant us strength and boldness. Turn the heart of the king toward our deliverance." Thus, with trembling hope and sacred resolve, Esther prepared for her encounter, knowing it would alter the course of many lives. God's sovereign hand was intricately intertwined with her story, leading her into a moment of reckoning. Yet, as dawn broke, God's grand narrative teetered on the edge of revelation, waiting to unfurl the threads of a greater mystery. What divine maneuvers awaited on this day ordained by heaven? The climactic encounters beyond this moment promise to unveil the depths of God's redemptive plan, ready to astonish and revive that which seemed lost. With the first light of dawn illuminating the palace, a new chapter unfolded within the walls of Susa. As Esther adorned herself in royal garments, each thread woven with her anguish and hope, she felt the weight of her people resting heavily upon her heart. In the stillness of her chamber, she whispered again, "Guide my steps, O Lord, for I am but a servant of your will." The fragrance of her oils mixed with the morning air, yet it was a fragrance of trepidation that enveloped her. Memories of her people's plight echoed in her mind, the cries of mothers, the fears of fathers. "O God, grant me the favor of my king." With each bead of perspiration tracing her brow, she heard the voice of her cousin Mordecai urging her spirit onward, "Be strong and courageous, Esther." Meanwhile, nestled upon his throne in the chambers of authority, King Ahasuerus groaned. A night of restless sleep had yielded visions that ebbed and flowed like shadows. Distant reverberations of unease tiptoed through his mind, yet he sought solace in the certainty of his reign. The fate of a nation, however, now rested in the balance, the fate of those who committed their lives to the God of Israel. Then, with trepidation but a firm heart, Esther approached those imposing doors. The guards, ever vigilant, met her gaze. "It is written, before kings, do not open your mouth, for they are like lions hungry for prey," Proverbs 17 verse 12. Yet Esther took a step forward, emboldened by prayer and the urgency of her mission. As she entered uninvited, the air became thick with a tension not easily dispelled. The king, upon seeing her so unexpectedly, lifted his scepter, granting her the lifeline she so desperately sought. "What troubles you, my queen?" Ahasuerus inquired, softening at the sight of her. "What is your request?" "Even to half my kingdom, I will grant it to you." With trembling lips but unwavering resolve, Esther replied, "If it pleases the king, let him and Haman come today to a banquet I have prepared." The king, intrigued by her invitation, summoned Haman without delay, weaving the threads of a crucial encounter ordained by heaven. At the banquet, Esther's heart raced like a swift river as the wine flowed, and the tension thickened like a storm upon the sea. The king once more turned to her, his curiosity piqued. "What is your petition, Esther?" "You have my ears and my heart." The moment arrived, a divine crescendo rippling through the depths of her spirit. Esther inhaled deeply, feeling the prayers of her people pooling in her heart. "My king," she began, her voice steady and resonant, "if I have found favor in your sight, spare my life, and the life of my people. For we have been sold to be destroyed, to be slain, and to be annihilated." The words fell like thunder upon the assembled, shaking the very foundations of their understanding. Ahasuerus' brow furrowed, and rage coursed through him as he pierced Haman with his gaze. "Who is this villain who dared to plot against my beloved queen?" As Haman stood speechless, dread covered him like a shroud. Little did he know, God's plan was now unfurling in brilliant hues of justice, ready to strike the heart of darkness with light. And at that moment, the Spirit stirred within Esther, whispering with urgency, "For the Lord your God is a consuming fire, a jealous God," Deuteronomy 4 verse 24. She sensed the tide of God's sovereignty washing over her, revealing the true nature of the battle. It was not merely against flesh and blood but was rooted in the cosmic struggles for faith and life. Yet, as the king's fury ignited, darkness lingered in the air, a portentous reminder of the lurking evil. The celestial tapestry of God's redemptive plan hovered, a mystery still entwined within the hearts of all gathered. What would this day bring forth? And how would the threads of Esther's faith interlace with the destiny of her people, ensuring the unfolding of God's promise? The answer awaited, darkly shrouded yet eagerly anticipated. King Ahasuerus, his face ablaze with wrath, turned his full gaze upon Haman, the schemer whose treachery now lay exposed before the court. The air crackled with divine judgment as the king demanded, "What manner of man would dare to plot such horrors against my queen?" Haman, gripped by terror, faltered under the weight of his malice. His heart pounded like war drums of ancient battles as the realization dawned upon him, he had not only plotted against a people but against the God they served. The tendrils of fear wrapped tightly around his throat, suffocating him in that moment of catastrophic revelation. Esther, sensing the air grow heavy with impending justice, did not waver. She pressed on, her heart still beating with fervent prayers as words of truth streamed from her lips. "My lord, this man Haman has deceived you with promises of wealth and power, seeking to annihilate my people out of jealousy and hatred." The king's eyes darkened as the threads of betrayal intertwined with the threads of divine intervention. "What shall be done to this wicked man?" he thundered, his voice echoing like the cries of the prophets unto the mountains. "Let him be hanged upon the very gallows he prepared for my kin," Esther proclaimed, a righteous fury igniting within her. Did not the scripture say, "The wicked shall fall by their own devices," Psalm 9 verse 16? The king, in a sudden fury, ordered Haman to be seized. "Go, there is judgment for your wickedness," commanded Ahasuerus. The guards, swift and resolute, obeyed without delay, snatching Haman from his seat of deception and dragging him away, the sound of his protests fading into the shadows of fate. With Haman out of the presence of Ahasuerus, silence fell heavily in the banquet hall. The people were caught in a holy stillness, the divine drama unfolding beyond what human eyes could comprehend. Esther, her heart racing, knew that the sovereign Lord of Israel was orchestrating events beyond their understanding. Then Ahasuerus, turning back to Esther, softened his tone as the fire of anger melted into curiosity. "How shall I ensure that your people are spared? Speak, my queen, and I shall grant your desire." "For a decree must be issued," Esther replied, her voice steady and filled with the Spirit of God, "to ensure the protection of my people from the danger that looms over them." Ahasuerus, stirred by the urgency of her plea, immediately summoned his scribes. The ink was prepared, and words were inscribed with authority to secure the lives of the Jews throughout the kingdom. It was a divine response to a human crisis, revealing the hand of the Most High at work in the midst of tumult. Yet, with the dawn of hope came the shadows of dread still lurking, for the edict of Haman had already set forth a wave of destruction. Esther, witnessing this corruption of righteousness, fell upon her knees, seeking the face of the Almighty. "O Lord," she prayed, "you who promised deliverance to your people, rise up against our adversaries." As she prayed, the very fabric of time seemed to tremble. Heavens echoed her plea, and deep within her spirit, she felt a stirring something monumental was about to transpire in the courts of heaven and on the earth. Then, once more the king turned to Esther, sensing a purpose greater than he could comprehend. "For what time is this, Esther? What is it that God has ordained for your people at such a time as this?" And with that, the stage was set for heaven's triumph over evil. A battle of spiritual magnitude waited in the wings, unfolding a deeper mystery of God's sovereign plan that was yet to be revealed. What would be the outcome of this divine rendezvous? And how would Esther's courage continue to weave the tapestry of destiny? Only time would unveil the answer, but one truth remained, "For you have not come to this royal position for such a time as this," Esther 4 verse 14. Then King Ahasuerus, in his haste to address the peril that loomed over Esther's people, commanded, saying, "Let a new decree be written in my name, and let it be sealed with the signet ring, for it shall stand against the wickedness of Haman's edict." The scribes hurried at the king's command, their quills dancing over parchment as they inscribed the words that would turn the tide of despair. "To the Jews in every city, the king has granted you the right to gather and defend yourselves, to destroy, to kill, and to annihilate any force against you." The decree echoed the fervent prayers of Esther and the cries of the oppressed, resonating with the promise of deliverance. As the ink dried, a wave of divine assurance swept through the heart of Esther. She grasped the significance of the moment. The Lord was affirming his covenant with Israel, bringing forth a gavel of justice that echoed through the dominion of Ahasuerus. The people trembled and startled with both fear and joy as they began to understand the shift in the winds of fate. Meanwhile, in the dark chambers of his mind, Haman, now bound and witnessing his empire collapse, felt the weight of his own folly. "How has it come to this?" he whispered to himself, despair creeping in as he recalled the banquet, the queen's revelation, and the royal decree that had turned his plot against the Jews into his own snare. Yet, amid the murmurs of anguish and triumph, the heart of Esther surged with courage. If it pleases the king, she spoke again, her voice steady through the chaos of emotions, let me reveal my true identity. For only when you know the depths of my spirit can you understand the power of this decree. The king, taken by her resolve, leaned closer, beckoning her to unveil the truth yet again. Speak, my queen. He urged, sensing the divine purpose thrumming through the air. Esther lifted her eyes, her heart aflame with divine assurance. I am a Jewess, my lord, and this bloody edict was meant to extinguish the light of our people. But I stand before you, not just as your queen, but as a daughter of Zion, pleading for salvation. The court, hushed in the gravity of her words, beheld the revelation. Ahasuerus' expression transformed, understanding dawning with the realization of God's hand molding the fate of his chosen people. Then let it be done. The king declared, his voice thick with royal command. In the courage of this queen, let her people rise as the morning sun, shining forth against the darkness planned for them. May this decree serve as a testament of their strength and an enduring protection from their adversaries. Outside the palace walls, news of the king's decree spread like wildfire, igniting hope in the hearts of the Jews. Rejoice, they cried. For we are not forsaken. The Lord has turned our mourning into joy. But in the hidden corners of the realm, shadows still whispered. Though evil had been momentarily thwarted, there remained a battle unseen, as the enemy would not easily yield. Esther's intercession and the king's decree opened the gates, but the war for survival was far from over. Answers lingered in the air as the celestial realm bore witness to this momentous decree. For Esther's bravery had illuminated a path toward deliverance, yet the whispers of God's sovereign plan shimmered over the horizon, beckoning for the faithful to trust in his perfect timing. What would the outcome of this unfolding battle be? The threads of destiny drew tighter, awaiting the next divine stroke. For God, in his eternal wisdom, had written more than just an edict, he was crafting a story of redemption that would echo through the ages, calling forth the hearts of his people into a deeper understanding of his ways. Amidst the dawning hope that swept through the streets of Shushan, the hearts of the Jews beat with renewed fervor. Messengers traversed the empire, bearing tidings of the king's decree, proclaiming freedom and the promise of salvation. Every corner echoed with cries of joy as families embraced, tears of relief mingling with laughter, celebrating a deliverance that was both near and distant, tangible yet shrouded in the uncertain shadows of the future. Esther, buoyed by the courage bestowed upon her, gathered the Jewish leaders of the city. They congregated in prayer, hearts united in supplication, seeking the Lord's guidance as they faced the looming confrontation with their foes. In that sacred assembly, a sense of kinship and resolve enveloped them. O Lord of hosts, Esther prayed fervently, her voice rising above the murmurs. Grant us the strength to rise as one. May we stand firm against the darkness determined to extinguish our light. For we are your chosen, and our lives are hidden in you. And across the land, as they prayed, the whispers of fear stirred in the hearts of the enemies of Israel. Haman, once the favored one, now lay ensnared in a web of his own malice. The walls of hatred that he constructed began to crumble as doubt pervaded the souls of those who rallied behind him. Will our swords be enough to confront a people who now dare to defend themselves? They questioned amongst themselves, shadows of uncertainty clouding their hearts. Yet Haman, clenching his fists, refused to succumb. Let them gather, he growled, his determination fueled by fury. I shall ensure that their voices are silenced before they can rise against me. As the days unfolded, the sun rose upon a day of reckoning, the 13th of Adar approached the day marked for destruction. With hearts steeled, the gathered Jews donned their battle attire, preparing not only with weapons but with the assurance of divine backing. Each looked to the horizon with fervor, hope entwined with anxiety. In the king's palace, Ahasuerus turned his gaze to Esther. What shall we expect on this fateful day, my queen? For the resolution of men lies in the invisible plans of God, he pondered, recognizing the weight of what was to come. Esther met his eyes, her spirit aflame with purpose. May your heart be steadfast, beloved king, for the Lord, who has led us from bondage, shall yet once more demonstrate his miraculous power. He shall fight for us, and we have merely to be still. As dusk settled over the land, the tension was palpable. The Jewish people, inspired by Esther's boldness, gathered in their cities, forming tight-knit alliances and invoking the name of the Lord. In every home, the prayers escalated to a crescendo, calling upon the God of Israel to infuse their hearts with faith that moved mountains, faith that quenched the fury of the adversary. But Haman, blinded by his rage and the echoes of his own mind, assembled forth his armies. "Let them come," he belted defiantly. "For I will not allow the decree of a queen to deter my plans. The decree of annihilation is written in the scrolls, and it shall be fulfilled." Little did he know, the very essence of his scheming was dangling at the precipice of divine justice. For though the night appeared to be heavy with despair, God's light was poised to shine through like the first rays of dawn after the darkest hour. What would be the outcome when every heart was thrust into battle with God's very own decree standing yet before them? Esther did not realize the fullness of God's sovereign plan entwined within history's fabric, a divine tapestry woven with each thread of faith and courage. And beneath the tumult, the ancient echoes of prophecy vibrated, reminding the faithful that God's purpose would not be thwarted, but rather, unveiled in his perfect time. As dawn broke on the fateful 13th of Adar, the sun bathed the city of Susa in a golden hue, an ethereal reminder of God's favor. The Jewish people emerged from their homes, adorned with gear of war yet filled with an unshakable spirit. Esther, their queen and intercessor, stood amongst them, her heart beating with the rhythm of divine resolve. With strong voices, they rallied together, hands raised toward heaven, calling upon the name above all names, O Lord of hosts, you who fight our battles, our refuge in times of trouble, grant us victory this day. The collective sound of fervent prayer echoed through the gates, rattling the very air. Meanwhile, Haman's armies gathered with dark ambition. "On this day, we shall eradicate the Jews," he proclaimed, his tone laced with rage. His confidants, fearful yet resolute, huddled around him, their hearts pounding with uncertainty. They had but heard whispers of the empowering decree that Esther had secured, their faith lay unshaken yet precarious. Yet, as the day unfolded, something miraculous began to reveal itself. God's sovereign hand was at work, and unseen forces gathered to support his people. As the sun reached its zenith, a sudden stillness cloaked the battlefield. The Jewish warriors, emboldened by prayer and expectation, charged forward as the cries of their enemies filled the air. "Trust in the Lord." Esther's voice rang clear and unwavering. Each step was a stride of faith, ignited by the overarching truth that God would fight for his children. The promise of protection lingered like the scent of incense rising to the heavens. As the two fronts collided, bewilderment set in among the adversaries of Israel. Haman's soldiers faltered, for they soon found themselves not against mere mortals but against a wellspring of divine power. Confusion and dread swept through their ranks like a tempest, shattering the confidence they had once clung so fiercely to. "Look!" they cried in panic. "The hand of the Almighty is upon them. It is not just a battle of flesh and blood but a celestial war." In their very fear, they began to turn against one another, an army devouring itself under the weight of their own treachery. What was meant to bring destruction turned into a calamity for the oppressors. Amidst the chaotic cries, Esther remembered the words of Mordecai, "For such a time as this," and with fervor, she pressed on in her resolve, urging her people to remain united, allowing faith to counteract fear. "Our strength lies in our unity and our trust in the God who saves." As twilight descended, the earth shook with the remnants of a battle, but this battle belonged to the Lord. Haman, realizing the fate woven against him, raced frantically through the chaos. The very gallows he had built for Mordecai now awaited him a fitting end for his evil reign. In the coming hours, as the smoke of rebellion receded, news spread like wildfire amongst the people of Israel. "We are victorious. The Lord has delivered us from the grip of annihilation." The sound of jubilant cries filled the air as people rejoiced in unison, feeling the weight of history tilt in their favor. Esther stood tall amidst them, her eyes fixed heavenward, whispering prayers of gratitude. "O God, you have shown yourself faithful. You have saved us and turned our mourning into dancing. May this victory stand as a testament to your unending love and covenantal promises. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow upon the land, the Jewish people of Susa gathered in celebration. They wept tears of relief and joy, offering sacrifices and praises to God. An annual feast of remembrance was established henceforth, celebrating their deliverance and honoring the courage of Esther, a beacon of hope. In the courts of Ahasuerus, an eternal decree was penned, as the king proclaimed, "Let it be known throughout my kingdom that on this day, the people of Esther are forever to be honored and protected." And so it was that the hand of God worked in every detail, weaving a narrative of deliverance that echoed through generations. From the ashes of despair rose a testimony of faith triumphant, declaring the mighty works of the Lord, who saves and protects his own. As those present in that fateful time reflected upon the triumph, the story of Esther would not only live in the annals of history but would inspire hearts in every generation, beckoning them to stand resolute in faith against any shadow, reminding them always, for such a time as this, we were born. The doors of heaven remain open, waiting for those who dare to believe, to act, and to testify to the wonders of God's truth. Now, dear beloved, as we conclude this monumental journey through Esther's story, we invite you to engage with your own faith. Subscribe immediately to our channel to not miss the next powerful biblical stories that transformative lives await. Leave a like now to help spread God's word through the algorithm, letting His truth reach those yearning for hope. Comment below with your spiritual reflections. Tell us how Esther's courageous tale has impacted your faith journey. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear God's truth today. This is the moment to help spread biblical truth. Don't wait even one more second to share this powerful testimony and bring others into the light of God's grace. Only true believers understand the importance of supporting biblical content to reach more souls for Christ.